Hey, welcome back, Lotus lovers. So I'm with my buddy Chris back here, and we're gonna be changing out the lights in his yellow car for some new LEDs from ORE. So let's get to it. So let's get this ORE kit open. Okay. And take a look at what we have. Oh yeah, we gotta take the wheel off first so we can access the fender liner, pop the fender liner out, and then we can get behind this and take out that light housing. So here is the LED housing that we're going to be changing out. And you can kind of see the LED down in there behind this massive lens. That's actually pretty cool. And it looks like we have some ballasts that are going to have to be put in line with the existing wiring. Some bracketry. Is it just changing out just like the low beams?
It's the low beam housing.
Okay, all right.
And then what the kit had boasted about is it'll be a true low beam, high beam toggle. So when you flash your high beams, it'll come out of the low beams like the newer, more modern cars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so my question is am I gonna have double high beams? Which would be pretty nice with some of these cars with the really bright lights. So.
Yeah, okay, so this housing actually has both high beams and low beams in it.
Right, I think
okay.
I think it toggles the reflector angle.
Wow, this is a pretty solid little unit. It has a little cooling fan on it and everything.
The lens looks high quality.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it feels heavy. Is it pretty heavy?
It is pretty heavy, yeah.
Nice.
Oh man, going with the scissor jack.
I like it.
You like the scissoring?
Scissor me timbers.
Yeah, I should have brought a jack. I didn't think about that.
It's okay. I like the scissor jack. It gets under there. It gets the job done.
All right, so with the wheel off, we're gonna have to take off these two screws right here and this one bolt to yank the fender liner out. These bottom screws are Phillips. Need like a number 2. All right, on the top here is a 10mm, which it's already kind of loose. You also have these little plastic grommets where the screws were at down the bottom. They just pop right out. And then once you take those 3 things out, it just comes out, right? Oh yeah, look at that, nice and easy. All right, so it looks like at the back of the light housing, we have these 3 bolts, right, Chris?
Right.
Yeah. Chris is the Lotus expert, so he's walking us through how to do this. So these nuts on the back of the light housing are 10mm. All right, and the Allen key that you need for this is number 5. And there's one more hidden nut up in here we need to get. So I need 10mm wrench, because can't get the socket on that one. So the nuts on these 3 on the back side are like some little nylock nuts, but the one up here is a flange nut. Why? Because Lotus. All right, there's one more bolt left. All right, and with that, it should just pop right out. So which one are we swapping? This one? So this is the low beam, and then this one's a high beam. And we don't know yet if your high beams are still going to be functional or if it's just going to be all in the LED.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. These guys doesn't look like it came with any instructions.
I think the instructions are all in mine.
Are they?
Nah.
All right, and this screw just pops right out. It holds the assembly on.
Because you already got its nut off, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get the nut off first, of course. Yeah, push from the back. You're just tapping on the screws in the back side.
Yeah, tap it really slightly on them.
Tap, 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 tap. This one up here seems to be the most stuck. You just gotta know how to wiggle it. All right, for whatever reason, this bolt right here was really tight. I had to wail on it with a hammer to get it loose. But once you actually get all the nuts on the backside undone and loose, the little housing just pops right out. This was the offending stud, I guess you call it. It's a stud for the light housing.
Yeah, look at that crap on there.
Yeah, I think maybe the gasket material just kind of glued itself to the clam.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we need to get the lights disconnected. Yeah,
there you go.
Push on that, like right there, and then.
I think this one just pulls right off the bulb. As you can see, it's a 2-hand job.
A 4-hand job?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, I see. It's just a little spade connector.
Yeah. Also a problem.
Okay. Lights removed. So now we gotta remove this clip on the lower adjustment bolt. You just pry it up with a screwdriver a little bit. Well, I mean, I guess if it was easy to take off, it wouldn't really do its job.
Right. I'm gonna call that the sombrero clip.
Yeah, there's probably actually a clip tool that works really good for this. I guess that kind of works, like pushing the little lips of the clip up, like around. There we go. It's loose, but it's like held on by the housing. I think, you know, this is just one of the joys of working on a hand-built car. The car that ORE was working with, like whenever they did the instructions, like this might have been like perfectly easy on. Yeah. And then every single Lotus is different.
Maybe we need.
Well, what's the next step? Is the next step like
remove the two upper screws holding the OEM projector assembly?
These two.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's take those two off.
Do not take those two off. They're not the right ones. You'll be able to see things better whenever we do the passenger side, after we figured this side out.
Yeah, those are the.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small. And they're on there.
Yeah, those are on there tight. Wow. Holy cow.
Obviously, somebody with very strong hands built this hand-built car. All right.
Yeah, tighten this up. Tighten up the adjustment screw.
And there you go.
And get it away from the housing, and then
came off. You just lost the very important bracket.
The very important, grommet or clip, whatever they want to call it. Put that in the magnetic tray. All right, so in order to get this nut off right here, apparently they Loctited this at the factory. The only way you can do this is to just kind of sacrifice the threads on the screw, clamp to it with some vice grips, and then go to town on the nut.
Oh yeah. Finally getting off. No.
And it broke.
And it broke.
That's hilarious. I think that's the part where they were saying you just have to wiggle it out of there.
Yeah. Got a lot of extra hardware.
The instructions say you have to wiggle it a lot, but it does come out.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
There you go. All right. Finally. All right, so now we're gonna have to add the brackets to the new housing. This is the lower bracket here. This is like the upper. The lower bracket goes on the side that has like the numbers on the lens here, and it's also the side that has the solenoid for the high beams and the fan. So this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, putting on the lower bracket onto the new headlight housing here. You get one side in and you just barely can't get the other screw in from the light housing into the bracket because the holes are just ever so slightly misaligned. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Like, it looks kind of like you can get it started, but the screw goes in crooked if you get it started. See, maybe you can see a little bit better there how the screw is just slightly crooked trying to get it into the hole. And it's just because these holes are drilled slightly too narrow to the ones on the housing itself. So what we're going to do is just try to enlarge this hole slightly. All right, so I took a drill and just very carefully reamed the hole out just a little bit. I made several passes, taking just tiny little bits of material out, and finally able to get both of these screws to be able to line up on the bracket. I don't know, ORE, you might want to double check your spacing on your bracket or your housing here, but making it work. Hand-built car, right? All right, so don't go by the pictures on the website. It's a little bit off. The pictures actually showed mounting this black bracket right here to the top side of the light housing, but it actually has to go on the back side. And what you do, you first mount the black little bracket here to this piece that came off the factory housing, and you mount it with the screws that you saved taking it off, and these screws then mount these two brackets to the light housing, and these are ORE's supplied screws right here. All right, so now I have this thing mounted into the bracket, the housing bracket. You need to take the little sombrero clip thing and get this back on here.
Getting that sombrero clip on there?
Yeah. Appropriate music for the sombrero clip.
See if you can get it on there before the end of this song.
It's kind of a funny
click.
Yeah, funny little clip.
Yeah.
The reason why this clip is required is that it holds the little top hat between its flange, and it just holds it onto this part of the bracket. And this, of course, is like what adjusts your headlight beam. So these guys, these little nuts, I guess we did find out the reason why they had them Loctited is that you actually adjust it from the front of the car. This is how you have to put on the nut and turn it, and that's how you adjust the beam. because you can't actually get to the screws, the screw heads, once you get it back in there. Interesting design. But yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and get this back in, and hopefully when we do the other side, maybe be able to see a little bit better, and maybe it'll be less of a challenge than the first one. All right, so first thing we did was we connected the high beam harness, or the adapter harness, like in here, and then connected this little white plug from the new light into that. Now we're gonna set it down in there and get it lined up. That connects to the high beams. Okay, yeah, before we maybe get it all the way in there, I think maybe we need to plug in that ballast. So this is a little LED headlight ballast. It connects back into this part right here.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So this part of the ballast connects into the light like this. Like this end goes into the factory connections. Make sure you get the positive to the positive and the
negative to negative.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to fit down in there, but we'll figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. So let's see. How do we know it's positive and negative?
Well, I'm guessing the blue one's the positive, and then the black one's the negative, right?
Okay. So black, blue, red.
That is the ballast connected, and where exactly this is supposed to sit, I'm not really sure. We have light, and then the high beams. Yeah, nice.
Both high beams illuminate?
Yeah, both high beams illuminate. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Did my turn signal work?
Turn signal works. Yep. And it's kind of funny. You can hear the fan going on the LED. Now all we need to do is get this thing bolted back up, and then once it's bolted back up, you'll have to adjust the headlights. But you know, I guess you'll wait for dark to do that. I think the ballast is just gonna sit like right in here. Yeah, I feel like we should zip tie it some sort of way. I'm not sure how. I don't know. What would you do with that? Because I think it's just gonna like rattle around in there, but we'll secure it some sort of way. Now let's tackle the passenger side. All right, just going over the screws again and nuts and bolts. We have 3 nuts, main 10mm nuts that hold the light housing on in the back. And there should be another one up here, but this is like a rubber grommet thing. It's not normal. And then we also have 2 of the hex head bolts, which hold the lens on. And we should probably take those off first. And then you're missing one of the hex head ones up here too. God. So just kind of like on the other side, there should be 3. There should be another one like right up here that holds the lens on. Only got 2.
Adding lightness.
So yeah,
fell off.
Adding lightness by losing fasteners. Yep, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're gonna take these 2 off first so we can pop the lens off, and then we can take these 3 off to take the actual light housing out. All right, so now we got the nuts undone on the back. The housing just slides right out. Of course, we had to tap on it a little bit to get it undone, but it wasn't nearly stuck as bad as the other side. All right, now that we got the wires connected, the housing comes on out, and now the real fun begins. All right, so now that we have this thing out, we gotta take this little sombrero clip off to be able to get this adjustment screw out, and then we have to undo these 2 screws right here. I think it's gonna go a little bit more smoothly on this side. All right, so these little bastard screws are Loctited in really hard. I don't know what kind of Loctite they're using over in Sheffield, but
Heffel.
Is it Heffel? Yeah, it's ridiculous. But Chris mentioned maybe I should try like tightening it just a little bit and then backing off. And after several applications of like tighten, loosen, tighten, loosen, tighten, loosen, like these little screws are finally coming out of here. So making progress. All right, you can kind of see the goop that's on the threads there, and we gotta save these screws, so putting those over for later. This little spacer that was behind it, we actually don't need that anymore, so set that to the side. Now what we need to do is get these dang things off, and they're Loctited in as well. Yeah, so the only way to get these damn things off is if you have to clamp the screw, or clamp the bolt with the vice grips. And then you can back the screw out of there and back the nut off. All right, so now we gotta wiggle this thing out of here.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
Had practice.
And it comes right out. Now what we need to do is get this little cap head screw off, or actually, do we? We don't have to do that. No, we don't have to do that. Okay, so I think that's one of the things that we did wrong on the other side is that I don't think we actually had to take these ones off. We had to take these screws off. We should be able to leave this bracket just like it is on here. So now we need the hardware.
If only we had good instructions.
Yeah, right. All right, so with the 2 screws that we took out of the housing, we gotta put this little bracket on here like this. It's got so much Loctite on it, it's hard to like get the screw started. It's like there's Loctite just falling out the back of the hole. All right, cool. Now that this bracket's on here, we gotta put the bottom bracket on this guy. Bottom bracket goes on like this. ORE supplies screws for that. And I think we're gonna need the drill again. Yeah, bring me the drill.
Bringing you the drill. The drill.
It doesn't take much, but I'm just gonna remount the hole a little bit. All right, so just a little bit of reaming made it so that the screws fit just fine. All right, with the lower bracket on, then we need to install the adjustment screw. And the adjustment screw, since this is the passenger side, now goes on, no, had it backwards. Since it's the passenger side, we did this side on the driver's side. On the passenger side, it goes on the opposite side. You gotta pull the little top hat off of this guy. And with the top hat removed from the factory little screw, put it on this guy. Oh shit, well that broke. I think we'll save this little piece and then we'll just try to see if it holds on with the sombrero. It kind of sucks, but now it's going to fit on like this. I'm gonna make it work. Yeah, there we go. And now we can drop in the screws into the upper part of the bracket. And these are also screws that ORE provide. Am I saying that right? O-R-E?
O-R-E, yes.
O-R-E-O. All right, so we got these screws screwed up, and or not screwed up. I think it was screwed up kind of last time because I actually didn't have to take this one off at all, so we could have saved ourselves some trouble. This one's going together a lot quicker. Still had to drill out this, so it's a little bit kind of funny. But yeah, so we got this bracket on, and now just need to put the sombrero clip back on this little guy. All right, you got the sombrero clip on, and then also put a little acorn nut on the front of the adjuster. And now all we have to do is stick this thing back in there, wire up the ballast. All right, you got the ballast tucked down in here, zip tied in here. I think you did a little bit better job of it this time than last time. And of course it's wired into the factory harness here and wires into the high beam with this little adapter pigtail. And yeah, so now all we have to do, test it out. All right. Oh yeah. Blinker works. All right, now we need to throw the nuts back on the little studs on the headlight housing. And you know, it's, like we were saying earlier, it's gonna have to be adjusted later, but you just adjust it using these acorn nuts here. Now let's get the nuts back in, the fender liner back on, and the wheel.
So Chris really likes the new lights. He says it's a night and day difference. And this was a little bit of a learning experience for us, but now that we know what we're doing, I'm pretty sure I could get this done in 2 hours or less. And hopefully you find this helpful if you're trying to install these lights too. So hey, hit that thumbs up button for me. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. See you next time.